morning, students. In the last 12 sessions, we have discussed about the details of all four life processes. Now, let us discuss about the questions that are given as part of the exercises at the end of the chapter. The first question: the kidneys in human beings are a part of the system for which life process? The kidneys are part of the system for which life process? It is excretion. Okay, in the last immediate sessions only we have learned that kidneys are part of excretory system. So, answer is excretion. The xylem in plants are responsible for, both xylem and phloem are responsible for transport of various materials. Xylem is responsible for transport of water and minerals. So, transport of water. The autotrophic mode of nutrition requires which all things? In most of the plants, the autotrophic mode of nutrition is carried out by a process known as photosynthesis. For photosynthesis, sunlight is required, carbon dioxide and water are required as raw materials. Sunlight is for energy to drive the photosynthesis process. And how sunlight is absorbed? By chlorophyll. So, carbon dioxide and water, chlorophyll and sunlight. All of them are required for autotrophic nutrition. Next. During the process of respiration, two events takes place. First event is breakdown of glucose into two pyruvate molecules, and second event is breakdown of pyruvate into the remaining molecules. In aerobic respiration, it occurs in one way, and in anaerobic respiration, the breakdown of pyruvate into its respective molecules, it occurs in another way. Whatever it may be, the breakdown of pyruvate to give carbon dioxide, water and energy, which generally occurs in aerobic respiration. So, this process takes place in which place of the cell? In aerobic respiration, the first phase, that is breakdown of glucose into two pyruvate molecules, which is also known as glycolysis, it takes place in cytoplasm. The second phase, that is breakdown of pyruvate to carbon dioxide, water and energy, this process takes place in mitochondria, which is known as powerhouse of the cell. How are the fats digested in our body, and where does this process take place? Where does this process occur? Fats, they are getting digested by the pancreatic enzymes and intestinal enzymes. So, until the food arrives the small intestine, no fat digestion takes place. So, fat digestion takes place only in the small intestine. Once the food reaches into small intestine from stomach, the hepatic juice from the liver portion, the bile juice, is released, which contains bile salts in it. These bile salts emulsify the fats. Emulsification means breakdown of large fat globules into smaller fat globules. On these emulsified fats, initially the pancreatic lipase acts, later the intestinal lipase acts, and finally fatty acid molecules are formed by the digestion of fats. This is how the fat digestion takes place. Role of saliva in the digestion of the food. What is the role of saliva in the digestion of the food? That is actually asked in the question. Saliva, it is a liquid or fluid that is released by the salivary glands in our oral cavity. There are three pairs of salivary glands in our oral cavity. Okay. from all these three glands, the saliva is released. Saliva first, it makes the food to get wet, because we may eat dry food also, sometimes we may eat semi-solid food or complete solid food. But if the food is in solid condition itself, and if this food is moving through the alimentary canal, the walls of the alimentary canal or the lining of the wall of the alimentary canal is very soft. So this soft lining of the wall of the alimentary canal may get damaged if hard food goes through it. So that in order to make the food soft, the food needs to get wet. So this process is carried out by saliva. Saliva makes the food to get wet, and after this the wet food will be getting mixed thoroughly by the tongue, and it is chewed by the teeth. Then only the food will be moving inside. This is the only process that is carried out by saliva. Saliva contains salivary amylase or ptyalin, which digests the starch in the food, which we already have learned. So, making the food to get wet and digestion of the starch, these are the two things that are carried out by the saliva and the salivary amylase. Necessary conditions for the autotrophic nutrition, and what are the byproducts? Necessary conditions for the autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition is basically carried out by photosynthetic process. So what are the necessary conditions for photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide and water are available, water are needed, and light must be available. Light must be available, and chlorophyll should be present. These are the necessary conditions. Why? If chlorophyll is not there, the light energy cannot be captured. If sunlight is not there, even though chlorophyll is present and carbon dioxide and water are present, the food cannot be synthesized, because the driving energy for photosynthesis is the light energy. If sunlight is not there, that energy cannot be utilized. And if chlorophyll is not there, sunlight is there, water and carbon dioxide are there, chlorophyll is not there, then which particular substance can capture the light energy? Then also photosynthesis cannot be taking place. So these are the necessary conditions for the autotrophic mode of nutrition. And what are the byproducts? By photosynthesis, glucose is prepared, and what are the byproducts? Oxygen and water are the byproducts. Oxygen and water are the byproducts, along with the formation of glucose. Next, differences between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, oxygen is used. The second phase of respiration utilizes the oxygen. In anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not used. Okay. Organisms that are carry out anaerobic respiration. Is that the only difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration? Using and not using the oxygen? No. In aerobic respiration, greater amount of energy is produced, whereas in anaerobic respiration, less amount of energy is produced. Aerobic respiration is always only one type, okay, in which carbon dioxide, water and energy are formed. Whereas anaerobic respiration, it generally takes place in anaerobic respiration, carrying out organisms by producing ethanol and carbon dioxide and what? Energy. So ethanol means alcohol. Okay. Carbon dioxide and energy are produced. Whereas in oxygen deprived muscle cells, during the sternus activity, the lactic acid is produced in the place of ethanol and carbon dioxide, and energy is produced. So basically anaerobic respiration is also known as fermentation. This fermentation is of two types: alcoholic fermentation, which is generally carried out in yeast and anaerobic bacteria, and lactic acid fermentation, which is carried out in oxygen deprived muscle cells under sternus activity. And the amount of energy that is produced in aerobic respiration is very high, whereas the amount of energy that is produced in anaerobic respiration is very, very low. And the organisms that carry out anaerobic respiration, example, just now I told, anaerobic bacteria and yeast. Okay. How are the alveoli designed to maximize the exchange of gases? Alveoli they are the small balloon-like structures. Since they are very small, the surface area for gaseous exchange is very high. So by being smaller balloon-like structures, the surface area for the gaseous exchange is increased in alveoli. What would be the consequence of deficiency of hemoglobin in human body, in human beings? Hemoglobin is the protein which is present in the red blood cells of our blood. Hemoglobin has got high affinity towards the oxygen. If hemoglobin is not there, then oxygen has got poor solubility in the water or in blood plasma. So by being very less soluble in the blood plasma, the supply of oxygen would be getting diminished at very greater level, very badly, which would have resulted in very poor supply of oxygen. Not only that, if alone by means of diffusion, if oxygen has to move towards the distant parts from the lungs, then it will be taking longer periods of time by which oxygen cannot be reaching to the cells in the sufficient time. And by being dissolved in blood plasma, oxygen can be supplied in very less quantity, so that the cells will be getting deprived of oxygen and very low amount of energy will be produced and the persons will be becoming weak. So these are various consequences of deficiency of hemoglobin in our body. Next. Describe double circulation in human body and why is it necessary? Double circulation. The flow of blood through the heart twice. In the case of fishes, the blood flows through the heart only once during the entire circulation. Whereas in the case of birds and mammals, blood flows twice through the heart during a circulation. Blood between heart and all body parts, this circulation is known as systemic circulation. Blood between heart and the lungs is known as pulmonary circulation, such that the blood circulates between heart and lungs in the form of pulmonary circulation, between heart and all body parts in the form of systemic circulation. This double circulation ensures efficient supply of or sufficient amount of supply of oxygen to all body parts and their cells, with which the body cells can generate good amount of energy that can be utilized both for the maintenance of metabolic activities as well as for the maintenance of constant body temperature. Okay, this is the also significance of the double circulation. Right. What are the differences between transport of materials in xylem and phloem? In xylem, only water and minerals are transported from roots to the top of the plant body, only always in upward direction. So xylem transport is unidirectional, from roots to top of the plant body, always upward direction. By phloem, in the sieve tubes, the food materials and other substances like amino acids, etc., are transported from chlorophyll containing regions to non-chlorophyll containing regions. Means where chlorophyll is not present, where food cannot be synthesized. To all such regions, the food and amino acid like materials are transported through the sieve tubes. And when leaves are getting shut off from the storage areas, storage parts of the plant body, that is like roots, storage parts of the roots, the food will be transported back to the top region of the plant body. So the food is transported by phloem both in downward when the leaves are present and upward when the leaves are absent. Okay. Phloem transport the food both in downward as well as in upward directions. That is, phloem transport is bidirectional. Compare the alveoli and nephron in their structure and their function. Alveoli, as we already have discussed in the previous question, okay, how are the alveoli designed to maximize the exchange of gases? Alveoli are balloon-like bags which got terminated from the bronchi in our lungs. They increase the surface area by having very small size having very small size. So as the size decreases, the surface area increases. Surface area is inversely proportional to the size. If size is small, surface area is more. So being very small balloon-like bags, the alveoli are having larger surface area for gaseous exchange. The walls of the alveoli, they contain large or extensive network of blood capillaries with the semi-permeable lining. The walls of the alveoli contain large extensive network of blood capillaries which are having single-celled thickness, so that the exchange of gases, that is from the blood into the alveoli, CO2 is given, and from the alveoli, oxygen is given into the blood capillaries. Exchange of gases takes place, right? And how can we compare this alveoli structure with the structure of nephrons? Nephrons contain three parts. Okay, not three parts. Say the parts like first, cup-shaped structure, Bowman's capsule. Next, proximal convoluted tubule, the convoluted or spring-like tubule, which is present near proximal to the Bowman's capsule. This loop of Henle, hairpin-like structure. After this, again a convoluted tubule, which is farther from Bowman's capsule. So it is distal convoluted tubule, then followed by collecting duct. At the Bowman's capsule, within that cup-shaped structure, a tuft or a large network of capillaries is present, which we call glomerulus. Through these glomerulus, this blood capillaries, this tuft of blood capillaries contain many small pores. As the blood flows through the renal artery into this tuft of capillaries, what will happen? Arteries, they generally bring which blood? Pressurized blood. So that this pressurized blood, it applies the pressure onto these capillaries, and these capillary walls are containing what? Small pores, so that most of the materials will be filtered down. Initial filtrate is formed. Like how a tuft of, extensive network of capillaries are present at the walls of the alveoli. In the same manner, in the nephrons, at the Bowman's capsule, a tuft of blood capillaries is present. Like how gaseous exchange is taking place there at the alveoli. Here, most of the materials are filtered down in the starting of the proximal convoluted tubule from this tuft of capillaries. This is how both alveoli and nephrons can be compared in their structures in terms of having extensive network of blood capillaries. Right? Thank you.